Hello, everyone. Welcome to the presentation. My name is Anantarupa, and today we will be holding a stakeholder informational meeting for a project we're prospectively titling Remembering Revolution. Specifically, it's a call for artists for a memorial in honor of the 250th anniversary of the Battle of Lexington, put forth by the Lex250 Commission. Apologies for not starting the recording at the top, but we wanted to include this information for the recording. So broad strokes overview of the agenda for this meeting. We will start with a welcome and introductions where we will talk about ourselves at MAPC and the Lex250 Commission, the details of the memorial proposal, including the site and timeline, definitions of commemorative art, and definitions of memorials and monuments. This is where we will also be facilitating a community discussion about these topics, definitions, and histories that you guys all find pertinent. And we'll be ending this meeting with ways that everyone can get involved in this process. There are two main roles, and we look forward to getting into these more throughout tonight. The meeting goals for this project are to introduce the commission, the memorial proposal, MAPC, and really the process for this call for art. We hope to create a space in this timeline where we can have community leadership and authentic, transparent conversations around memorialization and commemorative art. And we're really excited to be hosting this event today to kickstart this project with all of you. As we will be going out into breakout rooms for a part of this meeting, we felt it was really important to put out some group agreements that were poignant, we felt, to highlight as we go into conversation, which I will read briefly. To be fully present, use I statements instead of we statements, take space, make space, share the lesson, not the story, and one mic. A lot of times with virtual meetings, it can be harder to gauge people's comfort level, and we find it really important to stress that we respect each other, our comments and contributions and perspectives. With that, I will hand it off to my colleague Abby to start off with introductions. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Abby Judd. I use she, her pronouns. I'm with MAPC, and we just want to invite you all. There's so many of us, which we are delighted to have such a large turnout for this conversation, and want to invite you all to share an introduction for yourself in the chat. And if you would be willing to share your names, your pronouns, if you feel comfortable, and also just what excited you about joining this meeting today. And we'll share those in the chat as we go through our introductions for our team, but also for the Lex250 Commission. And for that, I'm going to hand it over to Susie Berry to give a little context of how we all came to be here today, and just go from there. But I'll hand it to you, Susie.
Thank you, Abby. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending this evening, or if you're watching this, later as a recording. The Lexington Semi-Quincentennial Commission, or Lex250 as we call it for short, was created by the Select Board and charged with evaluating, making recommendations, and coordinating the town-wide activities to be held to commemorate the 250th anniversary of the Battle of Lexington and other historical events related to the founding of our country. While the 250th anniversary will take place in April of 2025, the Commission is planning events from 2024 through 2026. We are a commission of 15 members, and we meet twice a month. You can find more information about the commission on our webpage on the town's website. But one of the deliverables in our charge from the Select Board is to investigate opportunities for a possible permanent memorial for the 250th. And the possibility of a permanent memorial became a reality with the support of a local community member who has agreed to underwrite a significant portion of the project. And that has brought us to the process we're currently engaged in with MAPC, and why we're holding this meeting tonight and looking to get input from all of you. Lex250 and the Select Board are committed to making the 250th events and celebrations open to all, with commitment to diversity, inclusiveness, and opportunity at all levels and abilities. And I will now toss it to Anand.
Thank you so much, Susie. It's been a pleasure working with you all thus far. As I said in the beginning, my name is Anand Tudupa. I'm an Associate Arts and Culture Planner at the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. And I'm pretty new to this position, but very excited to be here in this space with all of you. And I'll pass it on to Abby to quickly introduce herself as well.
Thanks, Ananth. And sorry for the redundancy. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Abby Judd. I'm the project manager for this project here in Lexington, and I've been with the Metropolitan Area Planning Council for about 1.5 years now. And this is actually my second memorial focused project, so really excited to continue this work. We've been working on a project in Salem that is about to wrap up this fall, and continuing to think about equitable commemoration and memory. And so I'm excited to dive into that today as well. We're also joined by 2 members of our arts and culture team, who I'm going to just give shout outs for the sake of time today. But our assistant director, the department, Hannah Gaffman, is on with us, as well as regional humanities specialist, Lindsay Randall. So super grateful for y'all being here and to support our focus groups a little bit later on today. From there, I'm going to hand it back to Ananth to share a little bit more about the Metropolitan Area Planning Council and who we are.
Yes, I feel like we've been bouncing this around, so it'll probably be nice to have it in one place and know what MAPC is. So the Metropolitan Area Planning Council is a regional planning agency for the greater Boston metro area. We serve just over 3.3 million residents in 101 cities and towns, all across 8 subregions. And we mostly provide technical assistance in a variety of planning disciplines, from land use to arts and culture, which is the newest branch of MAPC. And our mission kind of highlights and emphasizes MAPC's larger mission of promoting smart growth and regional collaboration, following our regional plan, MetroCom 2050, to engage the public in responsible stewardship of our region's future. We're here in this project really to be supporting and putting together this call for commemorative art and a memorial. That means we started in early August, late July, doing existing conditions and site research. And that went into stakeholder development, which has brought all of you guys into this room. And we will be continuing to draft a call for artists and actually doing a groundbreaking, and at the end of this, having a piece of art to commemorate this process. And from there, I'll hand it off to Abby to continue talking about the actual proposal.
Thanks, Ananth. As I mentioned, at MAPC, we have been working in this space of commemorative public artwork for some time now. And the proposal and what we've been contracted by the Town of Lexington to do is work on this call for artists to support a memorial. And so the proposal here is all a proposal at this moment in time. So nothing is confirmed by committee in this moment. So please take this as this proposal is. But we have the proposal for the site for a memorial in Belfry Park. So just for context, this is a site map created by Anand, thinking about where this memorial would be located in relationship to the many other memorials and monuments within the center of Lexington. So in this orange area, this is the site of the Belfry Tower, as many of you might know. And so we had a site visit a few weeks ago and were able to walk around the space. And the proposed site we're thinking about for the memorial and would be within this park closest to the street and closest to the Battle Green as well. So we are looking at those pieces and thinking about how these would be in relationship with the other memorials and monuments that are there. and want to keep that in mind as we're moving forward in this process as well. In terms of the larger timeline and really proposal for this project, we started conversations and research in late July, and really are building towards thinking about what are those technical aspects and constraints that would limit the site constraints around a memorial within Belfry Park, and trying to think through those technical pieces next. And then want to start really drafting a call for artists in October, in partnership with community members and a project advisory group, to really identify the vision and values for that call for artists. So that's thinking in October, with the goal of releasing a call for artists in late November. So we propose a two-phase process within our call for artists process. First, to release that initial call, and then, as on this timeline shows, in December, wait for artists to respond to that call. And then the first phase of the process is selecting semifinalists. So this could be 3 to 5 artists who submit their qualifications and interest in that memorial, and then taking a selection panel to really think and evaluate selecting those 3 to 5 artists, and then giving them some time to develop a concept that they can propose to the community. So thinking about that selection piece for those semifinalists in January, and then in February, having a more public review of concepts from those artists, and then also the final selection of the last artist there. And then onward from that point, really thinking about March as the point for that artist to start working on that monument or memorial, and being ready to go and installed by Patriots Day 2025 and time for the 250th. So that is the proposed timeline and the proposed site at this point. And so what we want to do with our time together, we've been talking a lot, and I know that there's a lot of wisdom and knowledge in this room around memorials, around public history, around Lexington. And we want to just take some time to reflect on what is a memorial, and just making sure that we have a shared language to start off with all together. And of course, we can debate and talk about what makes sense and how this group would like to think about memorials. But we'll first kind of give some introduction to this piece, give some examples of memorials that might be interesting and intriguing for this group to think about. And then ultimately, we want to have a quick breakout discussion within smaller groups to hear from folks of what resonates with them and what they would like to see in terms of both remembering histories and stories. So start off, in terms of shared definitions, memorials and monuments, we generally put under the umbrella of commemorative public art or commemorative artwork. And so as this definition shows, this commemorative work is really a way to acknowledge, celebrate, remember the people, communities, and places and events of cultural significance in communities. And we see this done in monuments and memorials all throughout Lexington, and really thinking about monuments being a celebratory tool for a person or event, and the memorials sometimes are distinguished by being a place of reminding us of a site or a person or an event. And these symbols can take in multiple forms. Monuments are typically more statues, buildings, and structures, and memorials can be a lot of different things. But these are kind of the pieces that we are thinking about when we're talking about monuments and memorials. And a lot of our work we really are inspired by is from a group called Monument Lab, and they make the point that monuments really are a statement of power and presence in public and in public space. And so as we're thinking about this memorial, we're thinking about the public space that it occupies, but then also, to quote from Monument Lab and some of their innovative work that they're thinking about, and the larger national commemorative landscape, is that monuments really have this potential to transform the way that our country's histories are told in public spaces. And we really hope to hold this true moving forward to ensure that future generations can inherit a commemorative landscape that really venerates and reflects the vast, rich complexity of American history and the American story. And so what better place to think about all of these things than in Lexington, and within the context of so many memorials that are there, and also what histories and stories can be told to share that vast and rich complexity. And so we wanted to give a couple of examples of things that I know a lot of us may be familiar with, more of the statues that exist and things that exist within Lexington currently. But there are 3 examples that Monument Lab has shared recently that I think might be of interest. And I'll share the links to these as we go. But the first one on the far left is located in Germantown outside of Philadelphia, Vernon Park, and actually covers a similar topic really around the Battle of Germantown, which was also a Revolutionary War battle. And this is a temporary installation around an existing memorial, but I think has an opportunity to kind of reflect on the ways that modern memorials can really be reflective of current moments and how people relate to history. And so the monument itself is kind of covered in these reflective panelings, and invite people to come and reflect and see themselves within the history that is present. And again, these links that I'm sharing have much more eloquent descriptions and fuller descriptions of all these artists' work. And so I encourage you, if you're interested in any of these, please feel free to share those moving forward. The second example in the middle actually is a temporary installment within Washington, D.C. currently by Wendy Starr. It's called The Soil You See. And you may be able to see this it's a thumbprint, and actually Wendy Red Star is a Indigenous artist, and on the thumbprint is text from different treaties that were written between Indigenous folks in context with the US government in the 1800s. And I think that this is a really prominent example of the ways that history or monuments can be restorative of erased history or forgotten histories in a way that is both in conversation with the monuments that are around it on the National Mall. And then finally, the last example that we just draw inspiration from is from Paul Ramirez Jonas, which is called Let Freedom Ring. And it is an interactive piece actually that allows for folks who are passing by the bells at the top play My Country 'Tis of Thee, except for the last note. And as folks pass by, they can ring the final bell, the final Liberty Bell at the bottom, to really think about the way that monuments can also invite people into how larger themes like freedom resonate with their own experience, or think about where there's space to grow. And so these are slightly different concepts of memorials that we just wanted to introduce, and also just provide as kind of setting the table for what could be possible with a memorial to honor the 250th in the space of Belfry Park. And from there, I want to just note that we've been talking a lot, and we know that there's so many people here who have the wisdom of both Lexington, and also just we really want to make sure that we're grounding this conversation and what's possible and what's of interest to this community. So I'm going to open up some breakout rooms for discussion, and the MAPC staff who are on the call will be facilitating kind of these smaller group discussions around these 2 questions of, first, what commemorative artwork has been meaningful to you or has connected with you? And then secondly, what histories or stories need to be remembered in Lexington? And so these conversations will be really helpful for us kind of thinking through, but also want to make sure to really keep in mind our group agreements that we started off with, just to make space for everyone to be heard. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and send us out into breakout groups, and really excited to kind of hear the reflection on these 2 questions. We'll be in breakout groups for about 20 minutes. So we'll come back together around 6:15. But if you have any questions, you're in capable hands with each of our MAPC staff, and I'll go ahead and send you all into breakout groups now. So welcome back. I hope everyone, we're still closing some of the breakout rooms. Hope everyone was able to have good discussion. And as I mentioned to our group, this will not be the last time that we have open conversation and dialogue about these topics, but wanted to start the conversation around these themes of memory and memorial in Lexington. and what can inform this process. So thank you all for being present, and thank you for sharing. And I think are we all joining back now? Okay. All right, I think we're all back from our rooms. Again, appreciate you all being here and having time for discussion. I know after work, having an additional breakout room conversation can be a little taxing sometimes, so appreciate y'all showing up. Do we want to do a brief report out of just what we heard in different rooms? And Ananth, would you like to start us off, or is there someone from Ananth's room to share?
Sure, I can go. We had a really beautiful conversation. I think commemoration can always be really inspiring to hear what moments have really touched people's lives. And I already felt the seeds of further conversation for this project specifically in close to the Belfry Tower. Some points that I really wanted to share back were memorials that really were memorable for people were the Holocaust Memorial in Boston, the Vietnam Memorial, and the Statue of Liberty. And thinking back to Lexington and what histories and stories, we kind of had a broad reflection on that, and the idea of displacement, and specifically about the Belfry Tower, but then also this idea of commemoration and the ideal of the perfect union as kind of the groundwork or foundation for the revolution, and how we can continue that dialogue today. But really amazing conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Ananth. Is there someone from Lindsay's room, or if Lindsay willing to share out a little bit more what y'all heard in your room?
Yeah, I'm happy to share out my room stuff. We had a really, really good discussion. So some of the commemorative artwork that they sort of identified as being meaningful are like the Shaw Memorial on Boston Common, particularly not just because of the sort of topic and what the memorial is showing, but also the location and the prominence of it, really not shying away from the history of the Massachusetts 54th. Also, a couple people identified the Vietnam Memorial, particularly because in its simplicity, it represents all. Though there was some discussion about how monuments that depict the event, like physically depict it, are also incredibly meaningful. There was also mentions of the memorial to the lynching, and so really moved by the truth of that and not shying away from that. Also, there was a memorial or a statue at the FDR library of a grieving mother, and sort of it's more representation of war and what war means, and also some of the work with refugees and things. And then the history and stories for Lexington, we really sort of, after some discussion, there seemed to be a centering of the more positive aspects, so not focusing on the war itself, but the idea of liberty and what that meant. But also looking at how it could be a spark or an echo, and how it reverberates through the generations, and multiple generations sort of touching this one aspect of history. So really good, deep discussions. So go my group.
Thanks so much, Lindsay. Hannah, or someone from Hannah's group would like to share?
I can share. We had a good combo too, although I'm sure we could have talked a lot more. But sounding like some parallels with a couple of the other breakout groups, folks mentioned such as the Statue of Liberty, which, we know we don't need another Statue of Liberty, but mentioning, someone's parents coming to this country and having always talked about the significance of seeing the Statue of Liberty and what it meant for people's past and what it meant about what they hoped about their future. And I think that was a thread that we talked about a bit. Someone mentioned, memorials that have stuck out to them have gotten at not just what they're memorializing, but what the future is and what the path is to get to that future. And then we also happen to have a bit of a few different, I think, monuments experts in our group. But mentioning, I hope it's okay to call you out, Matthew, having some expertise on this topic and having done a talk previously to the Monuments Memorials Committee, and some of those members talked about that talk, including talking about the importance of allegory in making a monument powerful, in that's more likely to evoke these big images and concepts and ideals as opposed to the hyper tangible or specific, whether that's a person or an event. And then in terms of a couple other specific monuments, also the Mile In Vietnam Memorial came up in DC, and the note that which I was thinking too, everyone, the public in general, public opinion was pretty negative when that monument was unveiled, and generally it's pretty positive now. So I think something to keep in the back of our minds that is often the case with new public art. And then a couple notes about what we want to remember and the stories we want to tell is that right now we think, we do a pretty good job of remembering the Battle of Lexington and celebrating the Revolutionary War in Lexington. But looking at this Lex250 committee, the charge is not just about the Battle of Lexington, it's about commemorating the birth of the nation. And someone pointed out, thinking of America as a work in progress and an ongoing miracle, and looking at the larger concept of America. And then the last point that was made that I think was particularly poignant is thinking of the Battle of Lexington and the Revolutionary War from the lens of looking at the sacrifice that a lot of individuals made and decided to make the choice of pursuing liberty as opposed to putting their head down and continue living as they were. So how could a monument tell the story and really represent that sacrifice, and looking at liberty as something that needs to be actively preserved every day and into the future. So thank you to my group for having a lot of really thoughtful comments.
Wonderful. So great to hear so many robust conversations and great examples to be shared and thought of in going through this process. I'll share out a little bit from our group, unless anyone else wants to jump in to share. We were really excited to start this conversation, noting some examples of commemorative artwork that have been meaningful, including recent examples of the MLK Memorial that's the Embrace in Boston Common, and thinking about its significance and largeness and taking up space, as was mentioned earlier in some of the other comments. And then also an example that is currently in London called Making Sense by Ai Weiwei, thinking about the environment and authority and government, and really having a complex and nuanced read on what's present and the ways that arts can speak to all of those pieces. But also another great example that was given was Gadsden's Wharf, which is outside of the International African American History Museum, that holds, I think, this tension that has come up a little bit around liberty and the American story in terms of the folks who were brought to the U.S. to the colonies through the wharf, through the slave trade, and noting the history of folks who were fighting both for the revolution, but also holding slaves and within that space in Gadsden's Wharf. And then another example that came up was also current example of Lexi Her within the Lexington community, thinking about the broader histories of who's represented in the history of Lexington. And also the memorial for Prince Esterbrook was also mentioned within our group as well. In terms of the histories and stories, I think that tension was shared a little bit more about the dominant story of being liberty, but also this tension of a moment that also had a community that had slavery as very much a part of it as well. And so thinking about how to balance that significance for the role of women at the time, and also in a community fighting for liberty, but also having an active having slavery active within the community. So there are also some really great technical questions that were brought up just around the space and in terms of like where it would be, which I think is a great question and maybe a way to kind of think forward to our next steps for the project in terms of where this will be and how this memorial will come to be. So again, thank you all for taking a moment to share out. And please know that we hope that this is merely the beginning of the conversation. And if you are interested and passionate about this conversation or want to continue to be in conversation with us about this, there are a couple ways you can be involved moving forward. So within the process, we have proposed 2 different project roles that we want to invite everyone who's on this call today to consider thinking about being a project advisor or a member of the selection panel. And to give a little bit more context to what these 2 asks are, the first one for project advisor, the real role of this entity is to provide the definition or really define the vision and the values that will be embedded into the call for artists. So within the call for artists, this gives the context of what needs to be communicated through the art, or what are the visions and values that should be represented. And this is the proposed timeline for involvement within the project advisors. So we invite folks to consider self-nominating in September. And then in October, we hope to gather this group to really talk through what those values and vision or the values and vision should be for this call for artists. And then in November, really think about refining and drafting that call for artists that is in reflective of the values and visions that were discussed. And then also for this group, we just asked to be kind of advocates and hold this call for artists really strongly, to both share with artist networks, but also with community members. And so there will be opportunities to be involved in the process of both meeting with the selected artists, but also really inviting folks into a public discussion about the public advice or the memorial concepts. We're thinking in February. And then finally, just thinking about that group as really folks to advocate and celebrate and support the memorial in defining the next steps of what that looks like. And then the selection committee or selection panel, really, if the project advisors are writing the vision and values, the selection panel is really applying the vision and values as they're evaluating the artist's responses to the call for artists and the memorial concepts. So the timeline for this really is a little bit broader in terms of the self-nomination for the selection panel. But then we hope to have a selection panel orientation meeting to kind of go over the process, and then reviewing those applications for that initial first phase of the process, and then doing the second phase of the process in February of both attending the presentations from artists and then doing the final selection of the artist afterwards. So we invite you all to consider if you would like to serve in either of those roles, and consider if you'd like to serve in both of those roles as well. We know that Lexington has a Memorials and Monuments Committee, and some of the folks who are on that committee are serving and guiding in this process. And we want to also just note that we are also working on a technical advisory group with the Department of Public Works, and also going through the process to make sure that we're following the procedures and clarifying just how to move through this process as well. But we did want to just extend that invite to you all, and can share this as a link as well, as just an invitation and ways to participate moving forward and really shaping what is here. And thank you so much for Hannah sharing that in the chat as well. But I want to stop there because I know that there are lots of conversations that we've been really grateful to have thus far, and also questions that I think have come up in today's meeting too. So we want to get to those and just allow for there to be more questions. And we'll just note that we do have a project email. So if you have folks if you want to reach out to us, that email goes directly to Ananth and myself. And then also there is a project webpage that is linked on the town website as well with the Lex250 Commission but you can also find that there. So I will stop talking and I just want to open it up for questions. If you can use raise your hand feature or raise your hand here and we'll try to see you. Since we have 36 folks on today, I want to make sure to leave enough time for everybody. So are there any questions? I'll open it up. Oh, and BB, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead. Oh, I think you are muted.
Is Howard here? Howard Walk.
Yes, hi.
Hi. Okay. I think we ought to know who Howard Walk is.
Yes.
Well,
Hi.
nice to meet everyone.
Thank you, BB, and thank you, Howard. If you'd like to introduce yourself, you're welcome to as well directly. I know we alluded earlier to having community support for this project.
Sure, I'm from Lexington. I grew up on Augustus Road. I went to Bridge School, Diamond Junior High School, Lexington High School, class of '82. And I had approached BB and Susie about maybe provided an initial underwriting commitment for the project to get it off the ground. So I'm happy to do it. I'm excited, but it's a town process. So I'm happy to watch it and participate, but really enable the process of the town to come to fruition. So thanks for having. I live in Weston now, I'm sorry to say, but I was at Petersville Coffee last week, so I'm still connected.
Thank you, BB, and thank you, Howard. Appreciate that. Glad you're here. Glenn, I see you have your hand up. Do you want to go ahead? Oh, I'm sorry, Glenn. I think you're on mute.
Yep, sorry. A question for the MAPC. What kind of public, other than this kind of, invited and appointed interest group, are you going to have any other like large public polling or bigger community conversations to get an idea of how people feel about monuments in Lexington?
Glenn, thank you for that question. At the moment, we're hoping to kind of assemble that project advisory group to help guide that process and publicize it more openly too. It's on within the town website and also reaching out to different groups throughout the town to invite folks into that conversation. But I think we are certainly open to looking at more opportunities for engagement as well. And know that there have been some conversations that predate us through the Lex250 Commission, which Susie, I see you unmuted. I'm not sure if you wanted to add into that or not, but I think that we recognize that this is the beginning point of a conversation and there are many different conversations ahead. So within the project advisory group, we would welcome going through that process.
Great, thank you.
Ashley, I see you raising your hand and you may need to unmute as well.
We're all being so good at we're all mute. A survey was mentioned in our group.
An existing survey or a potential survey?
Potential survey of people, how they felt. Is that going to happen?
So we don't have a written up survey right this moment to share out, but this is a great moment to flag that can be a possibility within this project for sure, and can be something we explore that we can share out more broadly as well.
We will be sharing a questionnaire to fill out. It's a form to fill out for further interest in this project. I think maybe that was, I might have misspoken and said survey instead of form.
Oh, okay, so it's a form, okay. It's just letting everybody know is always good.
Thank you for that, Ashley. I saw a hand from Mona, and then I also saw Melanie unmute right after as well. And then for you, BB. So 1, 2, 3.
Oh, okay. So I'll go quickly. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I was thinking about what Ashley said, and yeah, I mean, I think I don't know if that's right. He didn't exactly say survey, but I think what was definitely brought up in our group was really important to have as many opportunities for community feedback and reach people. Not everybody is going to, we can publicize, but I think we want to make sure this is the event of our lifetime. I mean, maybe not for for some of us, I won't be there for the 300th, so I'm pretty sure. So it's the event of our lifetime. And we want to make sure that this memorial really reflects our 2023 values, and that everyone, not everyone's going to agree on everything, but it's important that we make, a concerted effort, all of us here and beyond, to make sure that there are opportunities for anyone who has an opinion. Could there be some sort of a feedback thing? Should the Lex 250 sort of also take feedback on that? I'm just trying to understand, so that I would just like to know that we did, in this moment, we thought ahead, that we gave everyone every opportunity to express their views on something that's going to outlive all of us.
Mona, to that end, I'm here. I'm 59. I have my Lexington bicentennial coin
No.
that I got when I was 11 years old. I've kept it with me my whole life, and it's an inspirational thing. And there's actually some nice little materials around it about the town of Lexington is proud of its role in the initial stages of the American Revolution, and has adopted a theme for the nation's bicentennial: pride is our past, faith is our future. And they had this commemorative memo. I mean, it may not be it's certainly not the right message for today, but the idea that it does have a lasting impact on people is what I think I appreciate you called out, because I was a kid when Gerald Ford came and all that kind of stuff.
Could we do a story on you and why you gave this?
That's very kind, but not necessary. Thank you. But
No, I think
I will bring I will bring this to one of the meetings, because anybody who wants to see these and we used to send stamps home with the date April 19th that would get mailed to people's houses, so you could all have the you'd actually have a watermark, a stamp mark of April 19th, 1975 on your little letter. But I'm one. I think you talk to anybody who was in Lexington in that era. We all, I mean, Bibi, we all remember. Everybody remembers it, because it was a lot of people on this call were there, and you probably all remember it in your own way. So it does have power.
I'm going to transition to Melanie, I think, next, then Bibi, and then Ashley, if you had something else you wanted to add, I can put you next.
Thank you, Abby. I was actually not planning to speak, but since you asked you said my name, so I will just speak for just a little bit about what I think. I echo what Mona said. I think I feel very fortunate to live in Lexington and then live through the Lex 250. I was not there Lex 200, but I guess the big difference between 250 versus 200 for Lexington is the town is more diverse. And I hope that memorial in some aspect could reflect that, that could, reflect that diversity, and the town is more vibrant and now. And I hope that not only the memorial, also the process of could help maybe like the questionnaire or survey would be helpful. I know a lot of people from Chinese community, for example, are not very vocal, or they are not in Facebook or the email list. But Cal would be very happy to help to spread the word, to help solicit feedback from the Chinese community.
That's good.
Thank you so much, Melanie. I appreciate your sharing, and sorry to put you on the spot unwillingly or unknowingly at first. Bibi, did you have something else that you wanted to share?
Yes, I'm unmuting. To speak to Howard's medal, we definitely are planning on a whole series of commemoratives, and they will be there. Some of us are collectors, and we've acknowledged that. And I just want to talk about our suggestion boxes. Ashley, you did that beautiful photograph, and Jim Shaw did a great job of our suggestion boxes, our bright blue 250 suggestion boxes. It's interesting to me that there 8 of them that we've placed all in the community town buildings, the police station, the fire station, etc. We didn't want to favor any place one over the other, and because it seemed like an obvious starting place, there has been absolutely no suggestion placed in the box that's in the town hall, in the town office building, which is amusing to me somehow. The most X-rated one that we got was at the police station, believe it or not. So someone stood there right in front of the policeman and filled out this X-rated form. But there have been several suggestions, and we have it's a box, and there are little papers that people can write on. There's a pen on the box, etc. So I think we need to think about where those should now go. Maybe they need to move on and out into the community. And I've had a couple of the stores in the center say they'd be glad to have them. Places where people are more obviously coming and going. And I don't know how to make that equitable, so I will ask for help on that. But the thought of maybe a mailed survey, and that's something that has to come out of I guess our budget. But I think we have a meeting tomorrow, one of our regular meetings, and I think I'll bring that up because I think that's a good idea. If it actually gets mailed to the people in the community, it might bring out, and they're sitting in their own homes and able to write what they want. I think it's an excellent idea.
Thank you, Bibi. And Ashley, if just for one moment, I'm going to pause just to answer Anne's question that was in the chat by handing it over to Susie to respond to that question. Susie and Jim.
Abby, can you just read the question so everyone knows what it was?
Absolutely. Anne was asking, could you speak to the potential costs beyond the very generous initial contribution and how these will be addressed?
Thank you. And so we do have a very generous contribution coming from Howard. However, contrary to popular belief, we do not have a money machine in the basement of Town Hall, correct, Jim? I was going to say correct. Yeah. And so we will be going, and I heard Glenn snicker in there somewhere.
We can't talk about it.
Okay. So we will be going the traditional routes. We will be looking to do fundraising within the community. We'll be looking for grants. We'll be looking to our local, our state, and our federal officials to see if they might be willing to contribute towards this as well. So kind of the typical three-pronged approach.
Thank you, Susie. And I know I don't think can unmute right now, but I hope that answers your question as well. And then I'll return. Ashley, did you have an additional question?
No.
Okay. Are there any other questions that are coming up for folks? Can be about the project roles, about the project proposal itself.
While we're talking about money, just to make sure that people understand that our written agreement with MAPC is for the memorial, the monument. It's not for any events or any of the other things that are going on. They're not. I'm sure they would do a fantastic job at that. Unfortunately, we're just focusing right now on their input for the memorial.
Phoebe, you probably have thought of this, but and Ashley, the whole means of widening public participation in what this commemorative memorial turns out to be. I'm assuming there's a box in the library which gets lots of.
Yeah.
But Jim Shaw mails the Lexington Times to every household in Lexington, and Ashley's been a terrific contributor over the years. And I just wonder if that isn't a means for reaching into the community to get some feedback.
That's a good suggestion. Jim has been super in terms of volunteering anything that we want him to do. So maybe there could actually be a form in the next issue that goes out. I mean, he's open to everything. So
Jim would-
Ashley, you want to come up with form?
So,
Ashley has now been appointed officially to the 250 committee.
excuse
So
me, Phoebe, I think, I hate to interrupt, but I think we're getting way down in the weeds here. So I just want
Okay.
to toss you back to Abby and make sure that we're doing everything that was on her list to get done tonight.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate the comments and I feel like there's great energy to come forward into the project advisor roles. And again, just want to make sure to guide that within the memorial, it's just possibilities within that. I know that we have about 13 minutes left and just know that all of your time is precious. So are there other pieces that have come up for you or questions you may have around the process? I appreciate the comments earlier too around the actual physical location as well.
What's our timeline now? Seems to me we gotta really move if you're planning to get this proposal out by, what was it, November?
Yes, thank you. Yes, we are trying to work hard to get the call for artists and the project advisory group together in October to really draft those pieces. And so if we're going to think about too, like having a survey or having additional kind of engagement methods, we would probably need to get moving on those sooner rather than later. So if there are other reflections or thoughts on how we might do that best in Lexington, appreciate Melanie's offer to share that out through the network through Cal as well, but other ways that we can continue to make sure that this isn't just limited to the folks who are in this room tonight, but really want to make sure that this is a broader conversation. Yes. Thank you for that question, Ashley.
I just think to get people involved, you have to give them an urgent deadline. So
Well,
you need those project advisors, and since we don't have a weekly newspaper, you're going to have to do it through some other means, whether it is Facebook or something.
Yes, so today, and this is a good point, after today's meeting, what we'll do is send both the recording of this meeting, but also that invitation to self-nominate out to everyone to be a project advisor. And then also just sharing out this timeline to really get things moving. And Hannah, I see you have your hand raised, so I'll hand it to you.
Thanks, Abby. Sorry, and I didn't mean to cut you off there. I was just going to emphasize that your all's help in even if you know you don't have the personal bandwidth to be involved in those couple of roles we talked about, spreading the word that we're looking for folks to raise their hand for those to your networks is really appreciated. That we have this project page that's shared in the chat there with the link to nominate to be involved in one of those other roles. So sharing that out to your networks is a starting point to reaching those broader communities, which I'm hearing from a lot of folks. And then also just the note that if you know you don't have the bandwidth to serve on the project advisor group or to serve on the selection committee, that doesn't mean that you won't be able to speak up at any point after tonight. That email address, that remains active throughout this project. And again, as Abby said, that email isn't going to an AI bot, that's just forwarding directly. So both Ananth and Abby get any messages that come in. So feel free to use that and to let your networks know about it too, so that we can collect, if you're not in one of the advisory groups, that you just think of something and send it along so that everyone gets it. And then also that there is, as Abby, we're not here to, thank you, Susie, for keeping us on track. I don't want to get too in the weeds, but part of this proposal that we'll do is a two-phase process in selecting those artists, and that is designed intentionally so that there's a phase for public input after the finalists are chosen. So just want to remind folks of that, that we know we have an ambitious project timeline ahead of us, but there are a couple of moments, throughout the project. So even if we end up getting to folks a little bit later in the process, we absolutely want to cast far and wide to get public participation and feedback once we're in that artist selection phase, in addition to this project advisory and designing that call for artists.
Great.
Thanks, Hannah. And thank you to everyone bringing up these points. It's, yes, a lot of work ahead, but I think this Lexington has proven to be a community that is able to jump in and make these things happen. So we're excited to be in partnership with you all on this. Are there any, for folks we haven't heard from yet, I just want to hold a little space. And if there aren't any questions, we can end a little bit early, but I want to make sure that if folks haven't gotten a chance to speak, if they would like to share any questions they might have. And if not, we can go ahead and wrap up. Our project team will stay on a little bit longer. So if you do have a lingering question that you want to share out, that'll be great. We'll be here. And again, we'll share out this recording and also the ways to be involved. And to Hannah's point, just if you do have folks who weren't able to attend tonight and just want to share that invitation to them to consider being a part of the project advisory group or the selection panel or both, we strongly welcome that. But again, thank you all for being here and sharing your time and reflections, and really appreciate the reflections around what this memorial can look like. And you can expect to hear from us again and very soon.
Thank you. And thanks, Howard.
And thank you, Howard. Yes, thanks for being here as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy to hang out until 7 for anybody.
Excellent work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susie. Thank you, BB.
Have a good night.
You too.
You as well.
Kamala, Marcia, did y'all have anything you wanted to talk about? Are y'all still there?
I was just putting the finishing touches on dinner. Just from my past experience with the Historical Society and guiding and greeting visitors and all of that, the one thing that seems to resonate with people is the willingness of those men, and I'm sorry they were all men, to stand there on the green. The willingness of people in Lexington to take a stand continually through the years. And that's just something that resonates with almost everybody that you know crosses our threshold. And so if we're talking about the ideal, something that's being evoked, that's what comes to mind for me. But thank you all. This was great. And I look forward to the process.